call them to the podium and recognize them.
Okay. One more folder.
I think Mr. Louie and Mr. Mojera are going to have to join her at the podium also.
Yeah. And I'd like all the boys to come up here and join us from the team.
Yeah,
All the players.
all the players, join, squeeze in there, around there someplace. Watch out for the
Just
floor.
don't trip, guys. Yeah,
Signs, huh?
Yeah.
Nice job.
And look towards the,
Everyone, look to those people.
all right. Got everybody?
You're blocking the camera. Come over here.
Well, first, first,
Come on this side.
all right.
Come on this side.
All right, I'll start, and the first thing I want to say is I look around, I think there's 23 out of the 25 players here tonight.
27.
Is it 27 now? Okay.
2 were injured.
2 were injured, okay, on the injured list. So, and we have, it's very exciting to see all of you here, first of all, dressed up so nicely. And we couldn't be any prouder of you boys and the job you did this year. I want to give you a little background on this football team. First of all, this year, the school committee changed the eligibility rules, and we made it so that these boys could really work hard to get eligible over the summer. A lot of you took us up on it. You did what it took, and then the most important thing is that you stayed on this team. You did whatever it took to make sure that you stayed eligible for your team, and that's what a team does. And I think that, through this year, you've learned some really important lessons about teamwork. And I'm going to challenge all of you to, 3 years from now, I want to see all of you in there playing on football. This football team hadn't won a game in 3 years, not one single game. They hadn't won a championship since 1998. Coach Blair and Coach Morgera, who had previous to this been the JV coaches, were asked to come down. They saw that they had an incredible potential with these boys and come down and work hard with them to see what they could do. And so they came down with all their coaching experience and probably spent an estimate from Coach Colley was that they've spent probably over 300 hours with you boys. And yeah. But anyway, we're very proud of you. We're looking forward to seeing all of you. We know that being connected to adults and making a commitment and having someone that for you to look up to and to respect is really a big part of going to school. So keep it up and keep up your grades. And I'm going to read this right now. And then at the end, your coach has a special copy of this for each of you to give you. You can frame it, put it on your wall. And then also remind you that tomorrow night they're being honored by the City Council at 6 p.m. At City Hall. So just remember to be there. Okay, so whereas the Rogers High School freshman football team distinguished itself by recently winning the State Division II championship, and 2, whereas the coach and members of the team, by achieving this honor, proved to the citizens of Newport and the state the quality of their training and practice, and whereas the achievement of this goal is further evidenced by the fine traditions of Rogers High School, and whereas the faculty, student body, parents, and citizens of Newport actively supported the efforts of the team, therefore be it resolved that the Newport School Committee formally extends to the coaches and members of the Rogers High School football team its congratulations on winning the Rhode Island State Division II championship for the 2012-2013 school year, and offers to the staff and team members an unanimous well done on receipt of this great honor. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be spread upon the official records of the Newport School Committee, and the original be presented to Coach Chris Luia and Blair Morgera and the Rogers High School freshman football team as an expression of our sincere appreciation and acknowledgement of their service to the school and the community. And signed by the head of the school committee and our superintendent. And congratulations and a big round of applause for our boys. Anybody want to say something? On Lucia? Okay.
Get a break. Let's go. Rogers on 3. 1, 2, 3, Rogers.
Good job, Chris.
Nice job, Brad.
Thank you guys very
Good
much.
job, good job.
More excellent than I am.
Yes. What's that now? Oh, it's 6:30. I'm sorry, it's 6:30, boys, tomorrow night, not 6. Where did I read that it was 6?
I don't know. The
Oh,
meeting
they
starts.
may have told him to be there at 6.
Oh, they probably did. The meeting starts at 6:30 at City Hall, but you probably have to be there early. So
Yeah, that's maybe, I saw it on something that, on the,
or maybe they do it before.
is that tomorrow? It was on the announcement.
Can I have a motion to pass that resolution?
I move that the resolution be passed to.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, passed unanimously. All right. We have one more resolution, which shouldn't take too long.
We pass the resolution, please?
Ms. Boland.
Move to pass the resolution.
Becky.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
I'll let it go this time.
Taking it up.
I thought she was. I don't see her though. I thought Joan Tracy was coming to the meeting.
If I couldn't find a seat, she'd wait outside.
I hope. Maybe later on. Maybe she. Too early.
So this next resolution is actually to celebrate my departure from the school committee.
All right, I'll just wait till that door shuts. It's almost there.
Hey, Pat,
Hey, Charlie.
The room emptied out.
Yeah, okay. We have a motion to,
approve this resolution related to Patrick Kelly's.
We don't
Service
have a
on school
resolution this time.
I'll move that rather than,
right,
so it's in the right order.
right. So there's a motion to approve the education award to Patrick Kelly for service to the Newport School Committee.
Second.
Moved and seconded, and then discussion, right?
Okay.
Well, I'll discuss it, only for the reason I think you are to be commended for pursuing the business of the digital equipment that was going to be, we were in the E-rate grant. We were originally told that we had to implement it into the existing schools.
You're stealing my thunder,
And
Charlie.
against, well, I'm just saying this is part of the discussion. And I think you're to be commended for pursuing that and getting a favorable opinion that we do not have to put that into those schools, and we can delay and put it into the Pell School. And thank you very much.
And you're welcome. That is one of the things as elected officials we need to be careful about is expenditure of taxpayer funds in a reasonable fashion.
All right, so I put together a few words for Pat here, and bear with me. So, in 2009, after displaying 7 yard signs around the city of Newport, Patrick Kelly, a well-respected parent and community member, was elected to the Newport School Committee. He learned the ropes and nuances of this very demanding, time-consuming position. Pat himself, a product of the Newport school system, had 2 sons that were working their way through our public schools. He had a vested interest. This gave Pat all the important connection to ground-level intelligence, allowing him to have a first-hand account of what was going on in our schools on a day-to-day basis. Pat brought to the school committee his vision, his energy, his perseverance, his organizational skills, his commitment, his initiative, and his passion for making Newport Public Schools a better place to be. The first 2 years went fast, and with only 5 of the original 7 signs left, Pat was re-elected to office. It was clear to a majority of us that Pat, as a senior engineer and program manager at Newark, would make an excellent chairman of the school committee. Pat hit the road running, making major changes to the seating arrangements on the school committee and the dais, and also moving the venue to Rogers. And you can all appreciate the better, improved acoustics for those of you that attended meetings before we moved it. Pat helped us define our goals as a school committee and made sure that we spent the next 2 years never losing sight or the focus. One of Pat's greatest passions is to see that math and science remains a primary focus of the district. He has been relentless in pressing administration for information so that data can inform the decision-making process here in Newport. Pat has made sure that we do not lose ground with advanced placement courses in the areas of math and science. Pat has also been a strong advocate for sports as a means to keeping students connected to adults, which in turn keeps kids in school. As a strong leader in the Rogers Booster Club, he doesn't just talk the talk, but he walks the walk. Pat is also a prolific writer and communicator, not only with fellow members of the school committee, but also the larger community, including city council, judges, and state government. He has advocated on behalf of truancy changes, contracts, and public funding, to name a few. Pat has also been instrumental in establishing new district policies, often drafting and wordsmithing into the wee hours of the morning. He has been relentless in trying to get a handle on district finances, having many meetings open to the public to discuss them. He was also a huge part of the success we had negotiating recent contracts with the unions. Pat has an honest, open-door policy and is always ready and eager to listen to the community. Tonight, to help me to decide what I was going to say, I went through all the agendas of the last 2 years. It became crystal clear I was going to have to narrow things down. His accomplishments are extensive, so I realized that I would just talk about the 2 initiatives that speak directly to the kind of leader Pat is. Pat's commitment to getting the new school built dates back to fewer and newer back in, I think, 2005. Pat led this community gathering of data, which led us to the direction of the Pell School. He single-handedly almost produced a document this thick, which represented hundreds of hours' worth of work, and that was all volunteer. From there, he has worked directly alongside Mrs. Gaines, overseeing the entire process from the beginning architectural sketches to where we are now. A while back, the project took huge setbacks, with the bidding coming in millions more than anticipated. Pat, midstream in this project, took a very bold stand, and against the strong opinion of many people, he advocated for hiring a new owner's agent. Undoubtedly, this decision was a godsend, and the project is now back on track, both financially and time-wise. Pat was also the first to suggest the addition of 2 extra classrooms in the new school. Realizing that the 2 classrooms would not be enough, he then initiated the Pell Options Subcommittee. You're going to be hearing a lot more about that tonight, and he just knew that we should take a proactive rather than a reactive approach to this looming problem. And one of the great things about this committee is probably for one of the first times it was made up of more community members than it was district employees. And then the second thing that I want to talk about was that when this E-rate, which is a very involved process, and so I won't go into that at all, but Pat saw an opportunity that the taxpayer was going to have to pay out a lot of money, and he didn't want this to happen. He was outraged to think that taxpayer money would be wasted putting in new technology in very old buildings in our 4 schools that were going to be closed in a few short months. Pat researched and researched this and went right to the source looking for relief. He was given hope only to find out a few weeks later that the final word was that our plea was being denied and that we were going to have to install this technology. He sat around for about a day, and then he would not take no for an answer, and fully attacked the problem by contacting the FCC and the USAC itself, our local senator, Jack Reed, and our congressman. And I'm really proud to announce that yesterday we got final word from USAC, because he went to the top. We are going to be able to save Pat's saving the taxpayers due to his perseverance It looks like $200,000 of taxpayer money that can go for other things. This speaks volumes about Pat and about his tenacity. He was not going to let this thing go, and just because he got the door slammed in his face more than once, he just opened it back up and went at it. And this perseverance and tenacity has not always been easy, because sometimes, he goes straight face to face with the superintendent, and it's hard. It's challenging for him, it's challenging for Pat, and but I just want to say that the Newport Public Schools is a lot better place because of what you've done here. I want to thank you for that, and I also want to hope that you have a few of those signs left in your garage.
Thanks, Becky. I'm going to ask to save that for a lot of years. I can use it for my obituary 40, 50 years from now, maybe.
Yeah, gosh.
I just want to say thank you to the community, really, for giving me an opportunity to serve. It is an elected position. You do have to state your case, your reasons, your beliefs before people vote for you. Not everybody's agreed with me all of the time, clearly, but I've tried to do what I think is right. I've tried to be open with the public, make sure they had access to the information, the reasons we were making decisions, and I hope the future school committees do the same. But thank you, it's been a pleasure, and I'm looking forward to a little free time. Thank you. Mr. Leary.
I would personally like to thank you, and maybe I can set this up with a little story. When I retired 3 years ago, I'm doing taxes for a long time, but the IRS trains people to do taxes. And there's 18 of us on between Tiverton, Little Compton, Portsmouth, Middletown, Newport, and Jamestown. It's like a section. They come in and train us. And I said, oh, this is good. I'm going to go with a bunch of math teachers. We're all going to be doing taxes. I go in there, and 18, 16 are engineers, one former IRS agent and myself. And I learned to respect engineers, and that's what Pat's background is. Say, pay attention to detail. And that's what Pat does. He pays attention to detail. He doesn't let it get by. And I hope, now I'm confident in Pat and this and patronize him here, I hope that other engineers see this and maybe run for school committee down the road, because these are the people that we need running for office, that pay attention to these details. And I can't thank him enough. I couldn't think of a better chairman. And thank you for your leadership.
Thank you, Mr. Leary. Appreciate that. Before I get teary-eyed, can we move on to Gabrielle Hermes in the high school report?
Hi. So the Rogers report for this past month is that Student Council is hosting a food drive for the Martin Luther King Center until December 17th. There are bags in every advisory to donate canned goods. There's a Rock the Socks fundraiser for faculty, staff, parents, guardians, and students who are asked to purchase either a 3-pack or a 6-pack of socks to donate throughout the months of December and January. Mock trial begins tomorrow in preparation for their upcoming trial. Rogers High School Theater had a successful showing of 'Tis Better to Give Than to Receive this weekend, and we'd like to say thank you for all who came. The RHS Music Department will be holding its annual winter concert tomorrow, featuring chorus, orchestra, and jazz band. Please come and show your support for those talented students who have worked so hard for this performance.
Is that at the high school?
Yes. The midterm ends this week, and in sports, freshman football is being honored today, or they were just honored today, for their state championship, and will be honored, as Mrs. Bolin said, by the mayor and city council at City Hall tomorrow. And just so congratulations to the players and coaches. Winter sports are in full swing. Boys basketball had a home game Friday night, or has a home game Friday night. Boys hockey won on Saturday against Pilgrims 8-1 and played Middletown Saturday night. Matthew Perry and William Chilton were recognized members of the boys soccer team at the state banquet this weekend. Matt was an all-division selection, while Will was honored as a member of the all-academic team. Also, congratulations are in order to Catherine Mitchell, who was named Rhode Island Interscholastic League's East Region Student Athlete of the Month for October. She is being recognized for her outstanding efforts and accomplishments in the classroom, in the community, and on the soccer field. And about what's being voted tonight, the students have been talking about the idea of having a preschool on campus, And the majority feel that they'd rather see room 500 be used for something for Rogers students since it's a part of the high school. So I just thought I'd let you guys know, because we've
that's
been
great.
talking about it.
Yeah, I'm
So,
glad you gathered that
okay.
information related to us. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Gabby? And everybody's getting their applications in for college,
Yes.
waiting for responses?
Deadlines, one of the deadlines was December 1st, and now between January 1st and then we'll hear around April. So
Yeah.
it's coming up. It's kind of wild.
That's great.
So yeah,
Exciting.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, great.
Are yours all in?
Yes, mine are all in.
Good job.
I got it done, and now I'm completely stress-free. Well, kind of. Yeah, maybe a little stressed, but
They have the common applications now?
yeah, for a lot of them.
Yeah.
So
Makes
it's
it a
good.
little bit easier.
A little bit easier, yeah, because you can just do it in one swoop. So. All right.
Any other questions for Gabrielle? Thank you very much.
Okay.
It's
Thank
been
you,
a
Gabby.
pleasure being on the committee with you. Next
Thank
month,
you.
we'll have a new committee.
See
Well,
you
actually,
in the new year.
Dr. Power will be here instead of me.
Okay. Oh,
That'd be
miss you.
different. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next is the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any requests for things to be pulled from the consent agenda? Hearing none, all in favor of the consent agenda? Aye. All opposed, motion passes 7-0.
I just want to point out, Mr. Kelly, that we had our first departing employee who went through the exit interview, Matt Doherty.
Oh,
How'd it go? How'd it go?
Went fine.
The next, so we'll move to action items. First action item is to act on the recommendation of the Pell Options Subcommittee. Mrs. Boland was the chair of this, so I don't know if I surprised you by this, but let me
No,
introduce this.
No, it's a pleasure to introduce. We had 14 members, 2 school committee, Pat and myself, 2 principals who could not be here tonight, and we also had 2 teachers who are both here this evening as representatives. And then we had 6 other parents representing different schools throughout and actually just different sections of Newport. We're trying to get a representative. And all of them have students that will be attending the Pell School. And so I'm not going to take too much floor. I'm going to introduce right now. This is Ida Neary and Melissa Turner. They're going to present and the findings of this group. And I think there were some packets in the back if you wanted to follow along.
I don't know, Ida, if you want the slide package. It is on the back, so if you want to reference anything, you just tell me and I'll push it. You can have the clicker.
Great.
Yeah, thank you, because I'll use it.
Do you want the clicker then? You're good?
I'm thinking, what is wrong? That happened to mine too. I was back a year ago.
Okay.
Okay,
You want me
last
to
year's.
say what you want? Okay.
It wouldn't go up the other day, same thing.
All right. So as Mrs. Boland said, my name is Ida Neary, and I was invited to be on the Pell Options Subcommittee by her and Pat Kelly earlier in October. I want to first start by thanking the larger school committee for really creating this subgroup and soliciting input from members of the public. I mean, it shows that the school committee recognizes that there are many people in Newport who care about the education of Newport's children, and so that was really, it was really nice to be invited, and I think it fosters a sense of community, and it gives a sense of buy-in that we're all in it, so we're making decisions together, and I think it legitimizes and personalizes the decisions that we're going to make, as opposed to us versus them. So the school committee is doing this, but no one else is involved. So we're all in it together. So there's buy-in, both from the public and from the members of the committee. So I really want to thank you for creating this committee and being willing to see it through and to listen to our recommendations. The other thing I also want to say is that the members of the committee were really, really talented, various areas of expertise in their own field, so it wasn't just a geographic representation, but I think it was also a good representation of people who are skilled at what they do in their own field of work. So we have people who understand budget and constructions and larger constituencies. So I thought that was important as well. So That's all I wanted to say. We had 6 meetings, and we started on October 24th, and we ended last Thursday. So we had we had over 8 hours of meeting. Often they went long, mostly not because the meeting will run badly, but mostly because we had a lot of things to discuss, and so we kept talking and talking and talking and talking, which is why we had an additional meeting for that Thursday, December 6th, was an additional meeting. It was not originally scheduled. And we had, which was very gratifying, we had members of the public at each meeting. And so it wasn't just the 14 of us talking amongst ourselves. There were always members of the public, and they gave us their input. And Newport, when my husband and I moved here, we realized that Newport has a lot of talented people. For a town of 22,000 people, it has a lot of talent. And that talent came out. And so the public was there, and we got input from them, so it was very helpful. So now I just want to talk about generally what we did and how we came about our recommendation. So the first thing we did is we needed some context, because when we got the charge of the committee, the objective was to, identify, assess, and recommend facility configuration. So the first thing we wanted to know is why do we need to do that? And it turns out that we have a potential shortage of 4 classrooms, if not more. So okay, well, let's get some context on that. Let's get some numbers. Let's get some data. A person without data is really just a person with an opinion. So it's nice to back up the information that we have with actual data. So we looked at what the trends had been. So the enrollment has actually been trending up since 2008. But the forecasts from the companies that had been used were negative. So we were finding ourselves in a place where the actual was showing a trend up, but the forecasts were down. So this is why we found ourselves in this situation. And so it's looking like we're likely 4 additional classrooms would be required. We don't know for sure. One of the things I think everybody in construction knows, one never builds for capacity. One always wants to build for a little bit of growth and movement. I mean, hotels do that, airplanes do that, everybody does that. College, I work at Salve Regina, we do that. Everybody tries to build not for capacity, but for a little bit of room and expansion. So, and we realized too that the enrollment would also be influenced by many different things. The Navy is obviously a big influencer. With the numbers, and we have some sense of how many students we get every year from the Navy, but it's hard to tell if that number will go up or down. So again, we looked at the numbers. There's always a new school effect. There's a new shining school coming online, and parents may decide, I think I want my child there. It's a state-of-the-art institution. I want to be there. So that's something there is no way we can't really plan for it, although we do have a recommendation for that. We are hoping to certainly grow the pre-K program and the Newport Heights project. Thank you, Pat. I did not know anything about that. There's a phase 5 adds 82 additional homes. Again, we don't know who will be living in those homes, but it's likely that there will be children, and it's likely they'll be from kindergarten to 4th grade, so they'll have to go somewhere, and the one place to go will be the Pell School. So we did all of this data, and we had all this information, and we realized, okay, well, let's really start talking about some options. What are we talking about here? And we looked at 10 different options. We kept going back and forth, and we added some, and we removed some. And you'll see on that slide, and the options considered, one of them that moved, that was deemed undesirable really quickly, was moving the 4th grade classrooms to Thompson Middle School. That was my suggestion. That was shot down immediately. So that's democracy for you, Like, okay, moving on. That's not going to work. But we really wanted to be thorough. We really took this charge seriously. We're all taxpayers. We're all going to be paying for the school. I mean, if we were at a private school, that's basically, we would be expected to really pay attention. So we really took this very, very seriously. As taxpayers' money is at hand, it's our money at hand, so we wanted to make sure we didn't leave any stones unturned. So we'll see, we considered 10 options. modular class, and they're in no particular order, actually, although number 10 released because nobody wanted that one at all. So the options were leasing modular classrooms and putting them at the Pell site, moving all kindergarten classrooms and put them to an alternate site, pre-K and K, moving 2 of those classes and put them at an alternate site. I mean, you can read this. I don't need really to read it for you. You can read it. But, so we went through those 10 options, and then what we did is we had to have a criteria to score and rank those options, because it's not really useful to have all of these options and go, okay, what do you want? That's not really very useful. So then we created a criteria and we score them. And so you'll see them on the next slide. That's the criteria. So there were 13 different criteria, and we all voted. And the one that, the top 2, as you could see, clearly got the most votes. And it was based on this long conversation again about what is it that we want to do. And we wanted to make sure that we were flexible. If there were future enrollment changes up, that we had room for those, and this was something that the Pell School has promised to teachers, that there would be grade level teacher cooperation. That came out clearly. Teachers want to cooperate. They want to be together. They want to talk to each other and share resources. So those 2 were really the top. So based on those 2 top criteria, as obviously there were many others, we came up with a recommendation. And only really 2, and you can see the vote and how we decided how we saw whether or not the 10 options met the criteria. And you can see on the results, only really 2 of the 10 passed the screening and met all criteria. And so here they are. It was moving all kindergartens to an alternate site, or building modular classroom at the Pell site. Those really are the 2 options that came to the fore after a lot of conversation. And when we voted on those, because we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just emotions driving the decision, but it was based on an objective vote. And it came out really that the vote for all K to the alternate site, which we would hope would be triplet at this point, simply because it's already being used as a class, as a school, so you don't have to retrofit it. The vote was 7 for all K to the alternate site, 3 wanted another option, 2 another, and 1 another. So I saw in the paper that it said there was a 7-6 vote, but I think that was somewhat of an oversimplification. It was really 7 of us voted for that one option, that one singular option of the kindergartners going to one site, and then 3 other members of the committee voted for the modular options, and then 2 voted for the mixed grade level, and then 1 person voted for taking 2 pre-K classrooms and 2 kindergarten classrooms and moving them off. So 7-6 in the paper, as I read it, that's an oversimplification. And it could be a little misleading, as if there was some big fight about it, but really that wasn't the case. And then, that's how we came to our recommendation. One of the other recommendations we made, which was not necessarily part of the charge, but was again about how do we know where enrollment's going to be? And obviously that's difficult to tell, but one of the recommendations we're making is opening enrollment and making it earlier. And there's no real reason for parents to have to wait until May or June or July to enroll their students. Why not start enrollment in January or February, and so we can at least start to get a handle on what are the numbers, what are those numbers going to look like earlier rather than later. So while it's not really what we were charged to do, we thought, well, that could help in terms of predicting the future. So our recommendation as a group is all kindergarten to triplets. And what we really would like to encourage is the feasibility study to see how can we do this? How can we best do this? And obviously that feasibility study, it's something that you as a committee members would be able to undertake, and there are other factors that certainly can be, that you need to look at that we were not privy to. So based on the information we had, on the criteria that we picked, that we went through, that is our best solution. should that solution not be the one that is chosen by the committee, we certainly would be disappointed. We would like then the committee to simply consider the second option. The second option was to lease modular classrooms and put them on the Pell site, and that as a second option was a unanimous vote. So when we went through the voting, first one that came to fore was again kindergarten triplet. However, if that doesn't work, is really the second option. Everything else that you see, all of the other 8 other options were really didn't meet the criteria. So we would really encourage you as a group to consider that first option that we put on the table. I think it really, in some respect, I think it'll be a nice conclusion for us as a subcommittee. We've spent a lot of time, we've put a lot of time, a lot of effort into making this recommendation. We did not make it lightly. The meetings were heated. There were certainly lots of conversations. And as I said earlier, I think it really shows that there's a lot of buy-in from, that we're all in it together. So that's really what I want to leave you with. I want to thank you again.
Stay up there.
Yeah, I'm here to answer any questions that you have, because we spent a lot of time on that. Yeah.
Okay. My name is Melissa Turner, and I just wanted to add on behalf of the teachers who were on the committee and also the teachers who attended the meetings, and there were a lot of them varying in different levels. We had teachers attend from elementary school level, middle school level, high school level. We had lots of itinerant teachers there sharing their expertise, and every one of them who came and attended felt that their time was so worthwhile because the committee asked them questions, they valued what they had to say. When it came time for voting, all of that information that was presented from the teachers was taken into account. And it really was, in our eyes, just the way that things should be run. It was very fair, it was very organized, efficient. It just, you walked away from it. Everybody had a say. For people who couldn't come, I kept in correspondence and email, and any suggestions or concerns that teachers had, I made sure that, that they were brought to the attention of the committee, and we just wanted to acknowledge that the teachers appreciated the involvement. So thank you.
And I'm going to add just one more personal thing. I love the Pell School. I love the whole concept of the Pell School, and this decision that we've made will impact me directly because that is my son will end up going to triplet and not to Pell for kindergarten. But putting personal decision aside, this we felt was the best decision for all of the students. So thank you very much for listening, and we certainly hope to have other opportunities to be part of the discussions.
Okay, before we go any further, don't go away. We're going to open this up to questions from the audience first, but I really want to say that I'm sorry that I did not introduce the committee. So if you'll stand, the members of the committee, I wanted to make sure we did that. We have Michael, right here, Michael Young. He, is that how we pronounce your last name? Close enough. And he actually is a representative, and he brought his expertise from the Navy, which was really nice, and he lives out at Fort Adams. We had Ida Neary, Ned Conley, who couldn't be here tonight, Robert Dufault working tonight, Saskia is here, and Dominic Knight, who was a 2006 graduate, and lives in the Sullivan area. He worked on our committee. We have Kelly Cords here tonight. And Karen Palmer at the last minute had to work. We have Jen Hole, who represented the teachers, along with Melissa. Did I get everybody? And Kim and Jay Booth, but both couldn't be here tonight. But wanted to just make sure we acknowledged. What? And Beth Calfane, too, they work together. So, okay, so we'll open it up to questions. How are we going to do this? I have to do it at the podium almost.
I know Mary and David had signed up to make a comment, maybe? So I don't know if you want to come to the podium to make that comment, or...
Yeah, it has to get on the TV.
Yeah. Otherwise, it won't be caught for the
Might be a comment or a question.
record.
The Teachers Association would like to thank the committee for doing a diligent job, and we're truly hopeful that their findings will be considered. We want to applaud them. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you for the recommendation that we include them on the committee. Mary? I know.
My name is Mary Souza. I am a paraeducator at Underwood School, and I'm also the president of Council 94. I've only attended a couple of meetings, the first two meetings, and then the other ones I was unable to be present. I just have a couple of questions regarding putting all the Ks at one school. I don't know if this was ever brought up to anybody. We have a self-contained classrooms, and that means that when we have preschool, the preschool kids that have IEPs go from our preschool classrooms into a self-contained kindergarten classroom. They're on the K roster, but they're also in another classroom, and then they spend like 3 hours a day within that classroom, and then they go into the kindergarten classroom. So how is that going to happen if if that particular classroom is at Pell and all the kindergarten classrooms are at Triplett?
You mean they do that when they enter kindergarten?
No, like there's a classroom at Cranston Calvert that our children leave preschool and they go to this particular classroom, and then they spend so much time in that classroom, and then they go out into the K classroom.
So that self-contained classroom could also be housed at Triplett, because that's a kindergarten.
But that self-contained classroom is K through 2.
Well, I'll be honest with you, the committee's charge wasn't, those are absolutely important details that need to be worked out at a future date, but that would absolutely
Can you move
have
up,
to be.
Melissa, and talk on this?
That would absolutely need to be considered in all the planning, but it would absolutely need to happen.
Right. That was just a concern, because I work in the preschool program, and I'm in the upper preschool level. We get the kids ready for kindergarten, and they go into the particular rooms, and if we were to have them separated, they wouldn't be able to integrate into the regular K classrooms if they weren't in the same school. That was my concern, that I noticed, it says for collaboration, student social development, that wouldn't happen if they weren't together.
Thanks, Mary. I will say Amy Donnelly-Roach, who is the Director of Student Services, did participate in almost every meeting. That wasn't a concern she brought up, but certainly in terms of investigating these, and there's trade-offs as you go forward on this, which one works the best of the two options. Any other comments from members of the audience in attendance? Mrs. Gaines has a question?
I don't have a question, but I want to congratulate you and commend you for the time and the effort that you've put into this committee. It's definitely going to be help to us when we have to make these decisions. Where do our kids go? We can refer to this. We can call you back, hopefully, if we have to deliberate on other things, such as Mary's concern, because things will come up. But please know that we want you to stay involved until we cut the ribbon.
Right. I mean, and I think that's why we gave our recommendation, understanding that the larger school committee will make the decision, but that's why we're also trying to save you time, right? I mean, we just went through a whole bunch of options, so here's our two best recommendation, and then that's why we're like, okay, now you go on to a feasibility study, and you could certainly go through all 10 options again, or just pretty much go through, okay, here are the two, and how do we make those two happen, and what's the best, and what are the considerations? So that's a very valid consideration. It can be worked out, or it can't be worked out. I don't know that. That was not our charge.
It will have to be worked out.
But certainly, but no option was going to be optimal. Not one. And this is a good problem to have, because we have high enrollment. This is a good problem to have, but no option was going to be optimal. It just isn't.
Any other questions? Dr. Flowers?
Yeah, when you're talking back in the, well, this going off now, but the the kindergartens say all at Triplett. Just throwing this out. Could pre-K fit there too, or would that be too many?
No. It won't fit. We looked at that.
So pre-K would have to be somewhere
at Pell.
other than Pell.
At Pell. No, at Pell.
Oh.
They
At
can
Pell.
fit at Pell. Yeah.
Okay.
We would not remove. We liked the fact that they had a nice classroom, pre-K
Yeah,
classrooms
this
at
should be
Pell.
for that.
So we didn't
Yeah.
want to.
Yeah.
We didn't really want to take that away from the students.
And the other exciting news that came out of that, not to interrupt you, was that that we found out that RIDE was very interested in expanding the preschool program in
Yeah.
Newport,
Yeah, we
and
should be.
that you would want to make sure that you had a place for them to do that, should it become available.
Yeah.
The challenge with Triplet is it has 12 classrooms that you can
Yeah.
utilize. You could need as many as 10 of those for kindergarten if you have an enrollment like you had this year. And then you need some space for art and music, so you kind of use up all the
yeah.
space pretty quickly.
Because to me, that's one of the great points about this new school, that the art and music should be dedicated to art and music.
Right.
That's what it really should be, yeah. Yeah,
Yes,
and
that was part of our criteria, and that came
Yeah.
up, that
Yeah, that
came
should be
very high,
understood, yeah.
over and over, that we did not want to touch those classrooms. That's what they're meant, let's use them for what they were meant to be.
And then just if the numbers level off, and you can put everyone into Pell,
Right, well, exactly, I mean,
because you don't know.
as I said, I think in a couple meetings, I would rather be in front of the newspaper on August 15th going, oh, well, we did all this work and we don't need it, as opposed to being in front of a newspaper on August 15th going, okay, we have 100 students, where will we put them?
Plain
You
big.
know, I mean, that's not a good situation, I think, to be in, so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Are you ready for me?
Ms. Bowman?
Yes, I'd like to make the motion that we accept the findings of this committee and that we move to put the kindergarten at the Triplet site. Did we just leave move the kindergartners to an alternate site for the 2013-14 school year. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that motion.
May I?
Discussion?
Yes. I would like to accept the recommendation of the committee, but rather than sit here tonight and say we're going to put these classes here and those classes there, I think we can make that decision at a later date. But we should definitely accept this report and use it to make the decision at a later date as to where our students are placed.
Any other discussion? Dr. Shoemaker?
I have to second that, because as she said, you know, we could get to August and everybody can get into Pell, and then we've made a motion to move the kids to Triplet, which isn't necessary. So I would like to accept just the report, and then we're going to have to, next year, worry about, once we get the enrollment numbers, go over and reconsider the decision.
So we have a motion and a second to accept the report and pursue the all-K option at one site. You really can't wait till August, because it'll be too late. You won't be able to react in time. So at this point,
I'm telling you, as a parent, I do not want to know August 15th.
Well, I don't care what date, I'm just saying.
This is December, we don't need to make that decision today.
so we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Could it be
Can
back?
we, I was gonna say, can that be reworded, or can it be?
Let's vote on this one the way
The
it is.
motion Mrs. Boland made was to accept the subcommittee recommendations and pursue the all-K at the Triplet site.
Alternate site.
At an alternate
site, because
site.
you never know.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Aye.
Okay, that motion fails 3-4.
So Bolin, Kelly, Larry.
Okay, Bowling, Kelly, Leary. Do we have an alternate motion? Mr. Phelan?
I'd like to make a motion that we put the modular classrooms at the Pell site.
Motion's made. I'll second that motion. I will second that motion because from our subcommittee's perspective, that was a close second. In fact, on the assessment criteria, the two were equal. They both met all of the criteria. So in that context, that was also an acceptable to the subcommittee perspective solution. Ms. Boland?
I'd like to move that we add an amendment to that if we find out that the modular classroom cannot be done for some particular reason, that it's, we doesn't get RIDE acceptance, that we go back to option one, which is the kindergarten. And that's my amendment.
Okay, so we have a motion and seconded. Now we have an amendment to vote on, which would be accept the subcommittee recommendation, pursue the modular buildings, and if that doesn't work out for some reason, we would then pursue the all-K at an alternate site.
I do have a question. Does anybody want to know the financial implications of any of these things before we do any of this? I mean, I understand that this is a great report, and I understand that folks spend a lot of time on it, but I would think that we would want to spend some time to
We
take
did talk about that. We understand that modular buildings requires lease and installation of those buildings. We understand that there's a wide variety of quality of those buildings that will drive some of the costs, that's some of the things that have to be followed on investigated. We realize if we have kids in another building, we need a principal, custodian, perhaps secretary, so we realize there's some operational costs.
Right.
And we realize the school committee's going to have to look at both of those things and decide as they move forward. However, given that these two options clearly were the top out of the 10 that were reviewed, there's no sense going and retreading old ground on the other ones. Mrs. Gaines.
I would object for the same reason that I did before. I think we don't have to make those decisions tonight. I think we can accept this report. I think we need to look at all. I see here one criteria, the 13th, the last consideration was cost. And in all reality, that can't be our last consideration. We have to consider cost. So I think we need to accept these recommendations and keep working and keep this committee involved in the work.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second, and then we have a motion as an amendment to that motion.
So we vote on the amendment.
Do I have a second for the amendment to the motion? Mr. Phelan seconds the motion. Take a vote on that amendment. All in favor of the amendment? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed to the amendment to the first motion? That passes 4-3, the amendment to the motion. So we can now discuss and vote on the amended motion. Any discussion on the amended motion, which is to accept the recommendation, pursue the modular building, and if for some reason that doesn't work out, then pursue the all K at one site?
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Leary.
I will support this, but it's a shame that people didn't like to admit that we made a huge mistake back when we did the school. We started building the school for 850 kids, and we planned on it, and then we had to spend an extra, I forgot, $300,000 or $400,000 for two extra, $500,000, thank you, $500,000 for 2 extra rooms on a building, and now we still don't have enough room. I'm not sure, I will support it, obviously, but it's a shame. I'm not sure I even would have voted for this if this was back in the original thing on the election time, telling us that, we told us 850 kids, population's going down, and here it is going up and up and up. And as they said, it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing that it's going up, but we didn't plan it. We'll have the biggest elementary school in the state of Rhode Island. In places like California, who went down, and people look at them as trends, not that I do, but especially in LA, they went to huge elementary schools, and guess what? It didn't work out. They're going back to small elementary schools now, going back to neighborhood schools. And my friend Dave Collin would be happy to hear that. He loved the neighborhood schools. And that's what they're going back to in California, because these huge, huge schools did not work out.
Thank you. Dr. Flowers?
Well, first of all, I think some neighborhoods probably out in California are as big as all of Newport. But as we are going through this, I am a little cautious about voting for this last motion, because we have to keep remembering what we promised the people of Newport the previous election about building the Pell School. I'd like to respectfully remind Mr. Leary that he had forecast that the high school was going to be practically empty, so we don't know. We have no idea how the numbers are going to be. And Mrs. Leary commented about that in the well-presented presentation. I think to lock ourselves into a specific site, and even as far as these modular buildings, I'm sure they're much better than they used to be ages ago, but I would still like to see all the details. I'd like to see cost-benefit analysis before I support that particular move. I believe we do have a reasonable window of opportunity for that.
Thank you, Dr. Flowers. Dr. Shoemaker.
I guess I go back to what I said before, is there's some very good options you've laid out there, and I'd rather not see us force down one or the other at this point. I'd rather wait, see what the enrollment is, see what the costs are, see what the availability is, a lot of other factors, and make that decision later. Maybe not in August, as you point out, but early as we can, try to get some numbers of enrollment and then plan accordingly. So I would rather not tie the school committee's hand at this point and to vote to oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Shoemaker. Any other comments? Okay, all,
So can we read back the motion, somebody, please?
yep. Can you read back the motion, Wendy?
Is
The
this the
amended
amended
motion?
motion?
Yeah.
Yes, it is. That was approved.
Okay, it was to add an amendment for Rebecca Boland if the modular classrooms at Pell's site is not
Feasible.
passed or
Or
feasible.
not
I'm
feasible.
not sure the word
Fee-
we use.
due
Okay,
to-
so let me try the motion again.
Then go back to option one.
Approve the whole, so the whole motion. Approve, accept the recommendations of the Pell Option Subcommittee and pursue the modular building option as a first priority, and if that is not feasible, to pursue the all K at one site option.
Yes.
I thought it was just the opposite.
No,
No.
no, we
that's it.
amended it to be the modular.
As the first option?
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
Not
did.
just first option.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we
it
did.
failed.
Because
The first
Becky,
one
because the
failed.
first one failed,
First one
then we went to a
failed.
second
Then
motion.
the motion.
Yeah.
So I hate to be redundant, can you repeat that one more time, please?
That's it, it's not.
The modulars doesn't work, it defaults to the case.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-3. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your work, your hours of labor, your thoughts, your input on this. Hopefully, as Dr. Shoemaker says, we'll start the enrollment process early. You may get to May and figure out you don't need one of these, but if you do, you'll know what it's going to take to implement it, and you'll be ready to implement it.
And I don't know what the costs are for a modular, not specifically, but my guess would be that it's gonna get more expensive to implement as we get closer to the time the school starts. So just in terms of getting the enrollment numbers as early as you can in that case, because if you keep waiting and waiting, generally, the delivery of something will be more expensive than most of the
Right. And,
Yeah, the recommendation is made for
To-
tell parents.
Right, and that's a reasonable time. And I will tell you that, I think we mentioned this in the meeting, but Mr. Farrar, from Farrar and Associates, is going to meet with a modular building representative on the site to talk about more of the details of what does it really take to put one of these in that area to the west of the school, which is right next to the entrance to the upper level school. Thank you very much.
Feel free, if you need to leave, to get home to your kids, or, you know. And if you don't, stay. We love the audience.
Next item on the agenda is item 6.2, a motion to approve funding for Thompson Middle School, completion of that band uniform, which are pants, for the total cost of, I believe, $2,955.40. Mr. Leary?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I put this on because a couple years ago at the St. Patrick's Day Parade, I was in a group of, obviously, there's a lot of thousands of people that watch it, and they're from Portsmouth and Middletown, and the bands went by, and they were all clapping, and Thompson went by, and they were kind of like looking at them, calling them ragtag, they didn't have uniforms on, they didn't look good, and I was highly embarrassed. So last year, we bought them all jackets, and now they look really good with jackets on. They have these winter concerts, and they have the couple parades that they march in. I think there's a state thing coming up they march in. So this year, I spoke to them about, you gotta get some pants that match. So when I looked into it, I thought it was a lot of money at first. It was, for 90 pants, it's $30 basically pants. They're band pants. They come from a band company in Dallas, Texas. And they hem them, they do everything, and they're good pants. So then I spoke with the what's the music guy's name?
Mr. G.
Mr. G, thank you. I was going to say, I
Yeah.
pronounced his last name
Ian
Gullop. Oh, Gullop. You know, he's done a tremendous job. I mean, he's got that band up to 80, 90 people at Thompson. I mean, that was nothing there before, you know, and he's done a tremendous job, and I wanted him to see it looking good. So I said, why don't you go to Walmart or go to one of these other chain stores and see what it costs for pants? And he did, and he came back with prices of $10 to $12, not hemmed, they come fitted size. And I said, that was fine, I was going to go with that, but it just seems to me like, what the heck, let's get real band pants for an extra $20. They'll last a lot longer, they'll probably be all the same color, they won't have to be washed, he can probably take care of himself every year, bring them in, dry press them, clean them. So I want this to be, so when you see them in the St. Patrick's Parade this year, or when they go to states this year, they're in the state thing, or when they're in the next parade, they're all gonna look good in uniform. And it's like, there's a lot of them out there, and I'm just be very proud, at least if it said that. So that's why I put this on the agenda, and I will support doing this right now for $3,000 roughly of our $38 million budget. So I'm not worried about that, you know.
Thank you, Ms. Leary. I have a second from Mrs. Boland on that. Any discussion on this? Dr. Shoemaker?
I'd ask that we change the agenda and see the finance report before we start spending money. I just feel like I don't want to write a check on my own personal account until I know that I have enough money in it. And I think if you look at the recently handed to us budget, it looks like we're in a deficit situation. And I just want to have that part of the discussion. And for that reason, I'd ask that with this point, we take up the revenue report. You say no?
I don't, the revenue report that we have now isn't indicating we're in a horrible situation.
Oh, all right, okay, then I'll.
So we can afford it?
So the revenue report that we received indicates we have a $747,000 positive variance.
Correct.
We have way too much money is what the revenue report tells me. I question the quality of the revenue report and based on everything going on in the business office.
And Ms. Tracy isn't here tonight, so I don't know about that.
So we can't, you don't need to.
So at the end of the day, the concept of having pants for Thompson is a good one.
Dr. Flowers?
Hey, just a query here. This is not quite $3,000. Is there a cutoff that you have to go out to bid, or does this not fall into that category?
This isn't that, I don't think it's of that level, but
Just
obviously,
wondering, yeah.
I don't know where Bobby got this from.
Because look at the date on it.
So
This
our-
was done last July.
So
Right.
our,
Oh, this was last July.
Yeah, this is July this
July
was done.
12th, right, I looked at it. So the price would be the same, or very
So
close to that.
our policy would require, if it is in excess of $4,000 for a
Right.
non-capital
Three
improvement
quotes.
project, you have to go get three.
quotes.
Yeah, that's what I was just
Quotes.
wondering what the
So I would like to,
top of my head, I couldn't remember the number.
I would like to suggest the motion be an amount not to exceed $5,000 to make sure we don't end up with $3,200 and we can't afford it. Is that acceptable, Mr. Leary?
Not 4,000 maybe.
Not to exceed $4,000.
4,000, because you can't go out and bid, right, not see 4,000, right.
Yep.
It won't see that much money, it won't be,
Well, it's $299.
he's contacting by via phone.
And then too, remember this quote was July.
July.
It might have gone up, so I think we need to give ourselves a little room.
Right, okay.
He actually is contacted by phone, he said it has it, but that's fine, believe me, we'll
Okay.
get.
So the motion to approve the purchase of,
Yeah, Mr. Leary made a motion to approve funding for Thompson Middle School band pants in the amount not to exceed $4,000.
Very good.
Ms. Boland seconded the motion.
very good.
Discussion followed.
And I think this is one of these things that we should always be looking out for. We should always be communicating with our teachers in our school, with our administrators, know what their needs are, because these are simple things to solve, right? They probably should have these pants when we bought the jackets in the first place, but I'm all in favor of this. Any other discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. The boys and girls will be looking great. And we talk about sports all the time, but it's equally important for them to
Right.
be involved in
Yeah,
these kind of
definitely, yeah.
music, any other extracurricular program. Next is a similar motion. This has to do with a sports team in this case. We're all familiar with the Rogers Viking Hockey Club. Approximately 3 years ago, we approved expending funds to cover their bus trips because we had not been providing any money to that organization at all, even though it's a varsity program in our school. We were not paying for equipment, we did not pay for uniforms, we were not paying for their facilities, and we opted to pay for busing and split that busing cost with Tiverton and Rocky Hill. At that time, all of their games were off the island. They traveled to every game, 18 games. They've since been able to schedule half of their games on the island, most at St. George's, some at Portsmouth Abbey. They now go to 9 games. We pay for 3 bus trips, Tiverton pays for 3 bus trips, Rocky Hill pays for 3 bus trips. That's all we do for that that group. I've talked with the president, the treasurer, the secretary of the hockey club. They're all community members. You all know them very well. They would like some help. It's an expensive sport. It's about $20,000 a year to operate that. We're probably giving them a couple $100. So my request, my recommendation is that we cover 1/3 of the cost of the coaches, which is about $6,300, recognizing that there are 2 other schools involved that either should cover that part of the coach's cost or not, but our student, we should do something for our
And,
students.
and I certainly understand that. I do think that there should be a bigger discussion between the school administration at Rogers, the folks at Tiverton, the folks at Rocky Hill, to take a look at whether or not this is even sufficient. I don't even know what the cost is for the ice time. I understand that that's substantial as well. I don't know what the relationship is with the coaches that they hire. I assume that they hire them. I don't know whether or not we advertise for them. So I would like to have a more general discussion about the program. Unfortunately, I have not done that. And I think that's a discussion worth having. I know Paul and those folks, and I think it's important to figure out where the program's going, how many kids we have, how many Rocky Hill has, and how many Tiverton has. Go ahead.
Ms. Gaines?
My question is, I'm concerned about just designating money for coaches if we don't have any input as to who these coaches are and all of that. But I do think we should contribute something to the program. Then how the money is used would be up to the people that run the program.
That's reasonable.
I'd rather not say that the Newport School Committee is paying for coaches and then something happens and we are liable. So if we simply contribute to the hockey program and don't designate how those funds are used, either for ice time, for coaches, for buses, for whatever, I think it would show that we support the program.
Thank you. Dr. Shoemaker?
I agree that some formal thing should be established, because we have, and this is an allegation, that one of our coaches has had an abuse problem, and we haven't spotted it. And I think these coaches, if we're going to pay for these coaches, we at least ought to screen them. And so I would like to see a more formal relationship between these three schools as to how this is done.
Now, just to be clear, you're not referring to a hockey coach when you make that allegation.
Yeah, that's correct.
You're not referring to a hockey coach. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, but again, I think no matter what happens, no matter what decision the committee makes tonight, I want to sit down with Jim and Jim and the hockey.
And these coaches do have to be certified by RIL to coach to be on that ice. They do go through
And
a
all
certification
the PE
process.
check and all that stuff.
Ms. Kelly, does the athletic director have anything to say?
Ms. Scully?
I can answer any questions you may have. If there's any specific questions.
What is the level of support from the other two schools? Is it a flat fee or is it a per student, per capita? How do you?
It was broken down, the transportation cost totaled up, and then just divided by the number of players and however many players they supported.
Per capita, I think. Player.
What about the general support for the program? Do the other schools?
It's all through the parents.
It's all, okay.
Yeah, I mean, the Viking Hockey Club, represented by these three schools, they've asked the Rogers boosters, they've asked the Tiverton's boosters. I'm not sure what Rocky Hill might have, but they'll ask and just see if there's
Community
something there.
sponsors and the businesses.
And
in the
sponsorships,
community.
yes.
Yeah, I was here when that club was organized, and I don't understand why we can't show some level of support for the program without owning it. I don't think we need to own it, but I certainly think we ought to be supporting our kids.
So I would offer a motion that we allocate an additional $2,500 to the athletic department budget to support the Rogers hockey program.
I'll
Is that
second that
reasonable?
motion.
Well, they take anything to get
Yeah.
them.
I mean, I think that's, $20,000 is a lot to commit to one program with 20 kids on it, but $2,500 seems like a reasonable amount of money.
So,
Ms. Lear?
Ms. Kelly, Ms. Colley, what's the $2,500 would be used for? Would it be for ice time or for?
That's the discretion of the Viking Hockey Club.
Okay, so.
And then for
I
now,
don't
just
need to-
from back, they pay $195 an hour for ice time, but ice time for any hockey parent is actually 50 minutes.
It will be a contribution directly
Right.
to.
Yeah, I have no
Viking.
problem
So
even
that just
increasing
gives you
that.
an idea.
I'm definitely for it. I mean, I remember sitting on this committee when George Patno came in front of us, in front of us down at Thompson,
Yep.
10 years ago, 11 years ago, asking to start the hockey team, and I supported then, I support it now. My concern is I want to make sure we get a report. I don't want this to have a lobster dinner and a beer bake, something like that, and we get a report later on with $2,500 spent that way, so, I mean.
Mr. Leary.
No, but I mean, it's been done by school committees and schools before. Not Newport.
Just one person.
We can certainly talk with the hockey club, and I'm sure they can tell you how that.
Yeah, tell us what it's
Yeah,
called.
and again, I think that I'd like to have a conversation with Paul.
That would be good,
and-
right.
Right.
Mr. Gunning, right. Mrs. Bowen?
I would, totally in favor of it. I just want to make sure that 2,500, if it goes for our kid, like, in other words, to help pay for whatever our children's contribution is, and not really to the greater team, like.
Once you give it to them, you give it to them.
No, it's
Well, I
a
don't know.
club, it's a club.
Right, it's a
They-
club,
they're-
but hopefully because the other schools, because these parents pay for them on their own, right?
Yes, currently they're assessed $500 for the season.
I'm not really in favor of paying for Rocky Hills kid ice time.
The fundraiser is better, I paid $1,000.
But if each parent is assessed $500, and we contribute $2,500 for our kids.
I just said
you
our kids.
simply divide that up, and the parents maybe have to pay $250.
Right, that's what my point was.
Okay,
And
we'll work
not
that
to-
detail out
I
with the
think
hockey
the
club.
devil's, the
devil's
concept is,
advocate.
the concept is great,
them
please
take
allow
care
me to do the devil in the
Yeah.
details
Okay.
with Jim and the, and.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to allocate an additional $2,500 to the athletic budget to contribute to the Rogers Vikings
In
hockey
some way,
club.
shape, or form, yes.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you very much, Jim, thank you.
Thank you.
Motion 6.4, yeah, sorry, Mr. Leary. I was getting ahead of myself. 6.4 is a motion Mr. Leary requested, which is to ask Newport City Council to have a representation on any future contract negotiation teams. Ms. Leary?
Yeah, thank you. I'm not sure, I'm going to work on the wording of this motion if I could. We spoke it this morning at a liaison meeting, and I hear loud and clear what they were saying. We really can't put the person on the team because a lot of times you get bound by gag rules, so they can't go back and talk to each other, so you're stuck. So I would like to send this as a communication to the city, and the wording, something like a city staff member as a trusted agent. I looked up a trusted agent. A trusted agent can be somebody that's involved in this, that can communicate with people, and not as a member of the team, designated by the city manager, be at school committee union negotiations. Now, I put this on because we're not a taxing authority, and I asked the members of the committee, as who are members, what is a 1% increase? Anybody in the committee can answer this. What's a 1% increase in tax? How much money is that included? Anybody know?
$60,000.
You're right, $600,000. $600,000 is one increase in taxes. We can only go to 4%. So just for example, we have a $1.3 million bond issue on Pell School. That's 2% next year of our money. 2% of money before you even go anywhere. So I think that they should have a city council person there as a trusted agent, if you use that terminology, and this be sent as communication to the council, so they know where we're at. And I think there's other things that happened in the past that we can discuss, but basically, that's how I would like to see it worded and put on there.
Mrs. Gaines?
I have a question of Mr. Leary.
Sure.
In factoring the payment from the city for the bond issue, did you take into consideration the reimbursement from the state?
No, I didn't. I just wanted to give.
Okay,
Yeah.
then you're giving.
Oh, no,
false
absolutely, yes.
information.
No, I'm not giving false information. The payment from the city would be $1.3 million, the city's part, for payment, for that money. That's our payment part. That's how much it
The
costs.
variable is the interest rate. We may get a more
Yeah.
favorable interest rate, but it's in that neighborhood.
That payment's $1.3 million.
Just
No,
check.
and I didn't factor a lot of the $800,000 in savings, all the other stuff. I just want to give an idea that if the bond payment is $1.3 million, which it's going to be, with the interest rate the way it is, 2% of the money from the city is going to go for that bond payment right away
2%,
next year.
2% of
So you only
that.
have 2% to go with. So I was just thinking that maybe they should be involved in negotiations, because if you take a raise for the city, just take this council 90, take teachers, they had a 1% raise for the teachers is $160,000. So now I get 2% next year, that's $320,000 more in the budget. And then you take Council 94, it's only about a $35,000 raise. So you're talking next year alone, you're talking $400,000 more in the budget just in raises that we approved. Now, that is what it is, for his $400,000, which is almost another percent. Now, there's ways of dealing with the money, I'm here to say that, and I know that, but I think that's my point, is that we need to get somebody from the city. We just can't go up there and approve a contract and then say, here it is. I don't want them to have a rejection or approval point of it. I just think they should be there as a trusted agent to know what's going on, if they so choose. And I think that's why I want to send it as a communication.
Thank you. Dr. Flowers?
Yeah, I was there this morning, I'm not on the liaison committee, but I observed, and it appeared to me that the city manager and the council members who were there were not enamored of the idea. It just seemed to be that, because it is our responsibility as the school committee to do that negotiations. I think perhaps asking for someone's input on a particular area, I would be very uncomfortable of having someone sitting at the table for negotiating everything, even non-financial issues, because they have enough problems negotiating their own people's contracts. So I think perhaps if you need some advice is one thing, but I don't want to see them as part of the negotiating team.
Well, let me make the motion,
Mr. Leary?
if you don't mind. So a city staff member, as a trusted agent, designated by the city manager, be at school committee union negotiations, and this be sent as communication to the city council.
We just talked before that there's not going to be any union negotiations for at least the next year.
That's correct. There's starting on this now, so we have it in communication to them. So that'd be the motion if there's a second. Yep.
Motion second. Dr. Shoemaker, I think you had...
Well, I thought maybe this was going to be more than just, it's just limited to negotiations.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Mrs. Gaines?
My question is the necessity of this, because we are observing the state statute that was enacted last session, wherein the city does have some responsibility as far as our financial matters are concerned. They have to review what we do. They have to have a liaison from the finance office working with our business department. So there is already involvement that we are doing that is required, and I don't see any point in adding more.
Thank you. I will support Mr. Leary's having gone through the negotiations for the two contracts in the last year or so. There are commitments we make that have long-term implications to the city, to the taxpayers, and I think having somebody at the table that's familiar with what's going on, that can answer some questions for the committee negotiation team and communicate back and forth would be beneficial. Post-employment benefits are a huge liability to the city. We've made some inroads on that, certainly quite a bit, thanks to Council 94's ability to negotiate on that. Not so much with teachers' union, but I do think Mr. Leary makes a good point to begin this discussion. Any other discussion?
Can I read the motion just
Yep.
to be sure I have
Yeah.
it right, because there's a little confusion? Mr. Leary made a motion to forward a communication to the city of Newport requesting a city staff member as a trusted agent designated by the city manager to serve on the Newport School Committee negotiation teams for future
Be at.
employee contracts.
Yeah, serve as fine. Serve at, be at school committee union negotiations.
And what do you want, to serve or?
Serve, I guess fine. Be at.
attend.
Serve is fine.
To
Doesn't
attend.
matter. It's not- That's
To
semantics.
To attend?
Yeah, attend, that's fine.
Okay, thank you.
And this be sent as communication to the city council.
Okay, now I need a vote.
Okay, so all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-3. Mrs. Gaines, Dr. Flowers, and Dr. Shoemaker opposed. Item 6.5, this is actually a pretty good opportunity. This goes back all the way till September 11th. E-rate is a program administered by the Federal Communication Commission. It's taxes that you pay on your cell phone and internet connection. The E-rate part of the program gives that back to schools and libraries in underprivileged sections of the country so that they can pay for infrastructure, network connectivity, wireless access, et cetera. We have been approved. This funding year 2010 was an extremely generous funding year. I think in total, the school department was approved for about $1.3 million in E-rate grants 4 of those were with regards to the elementary schools, the 4 old elementary schools. That total was about $560,000. When we initially started reviewing approval of that contract, we asked some questions about the design cost, the installation cost, the removal to move the equipment back to the Pell School. That total of the $560,000 was about $200,000, a little in excess of $200,000. That caused us to ask the question of the United Service Agreement Corporation, which administers this for FCC. Could we have a waiver for that? Their initial response was no. To maintain the integrity of the program, you need to do the install, certify you did the install before you move it. That really doesn't make much sense from a taxpayer's perspective for a few months to spend $200,000 to put it in schools that really don't have any wireless devices, to be honest, to use it. One of them has 20 iPads, but they already have a low-capacity wireless network to use those on, so they don't really need it. So we finally went all the way to the Inspector General for the Federal Communications Commission. He referred it to the Vice President of United Service Agency Corporation, who contacted me last week on Thursday. We had a discussion about it. He provided his decision on Monday, and his decision was, Pat, you don't really need to install that. We have no requirements, no regulations that say you need to install that. They were just being overly cautious, making sure we maintain the integrity of the program. Please take the following actions: get a number, an entity number for the Pell School, fill out this application, we'll give you a new form. The install has to occur by September of 2013. If you need an extension on that, let us know, and we'll give you an extension on that, but clearly that would be done by September 2013. So in essence, this will save our taxpayers $75,000 and the E-rate program $125,000, because there's a prorated portion that they're not going to give us the $125,000 for the install. They would just not give us that amount. The action was to actually file an appeal, but based on Mr. Blackwell's decision, I don't think an appeal is necessary. But I think we do need to undo what we did on the 21st of November, which was to halt CBE Technologies ordering and installation of the equipment. I think we did that on the 21st when we met.
We did.
Right, but it was the installation. I don't think it was the ordering.
Right.
So you don't need to do
We don't
anything.
need to do the installation.
Because you
But just to be clear,
you
we'll
don't
just
need to
have
do
a-
the installation.
You don't have to do the design or installation.
Right, yeah.
I think
So you don't need to really do anything. They can order the equipment? Because as I read the motion, it
You don't need
was
it,
halt
so-
the installation.
Yeah.
She's already halted the installation, but we can still order the equipment and get it ready to
You certainly
to go
want
Pell.
to start
Yeah.
ordering the equipment.
Yeah. So I don't think you need to do
I
it.
thought we voted to
I have it right here.
allocate the $175,000 for the move.
Wendy, you want to read it?
We,
Well, I don't have money.
we voted a couple, 3 meetings ago to allocate $151,000, which was our contribution to the total amount of $563,000. That amount will now go down by $50,000, the amount you need to allocate. You'll also save $25,000 on the Pell construction budget, which is in the Pell IT budget, $25,000 to move that equipment. So you'll save $50,000 on that allocation and $25,000 on the construction budget.
So we don't need to rescind that vote about,
I think at some point you have to straighten your budget out, but that's.
Yeah,
a later thing.
but I don't think you need to do anything in terms of, because we've already stopped the installation.
Wendy,
That's
what
stopped.
was the motion from the 21st of November?
Okay, Mr. Shoemaker made a motion that the superintendent contact CBE Technologies and notify them that the district is awaiting a determination from the United Service Administrative Company, Schools and Library Division, and that they are not to proceed with installation until
Correct.
that determination is received.
Right, so
that's.
Okay.
that was just installation.
So there's a design and installation. I think it's understood that they don't need to
Absolutely,
design it either.
I already contacted her.
Lisa, okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Boland?
Well, I just quickly figured out that $75,000, if we buy iPads at $250 a piece, we just purchased, have the
Half
ability
an
to purchase
iPad.
300 iPads
There you
for the-
go.
for the new kids at the
Perfect for the
school.
kids.
Very
Or
excited.
more Google Chromes, whatever
And
we
more
decide to
Google
do.
Chrome, but
Whatever the
that
right-
might provide 300.
Okay, so no motion is required because USAC has given us that decision that does not need to be installed, and an appropriate motion was made to halt the installation and design process.
Fantastic.
Dr.
Yeah.
Flowers?
Yeah, just two things. One, I'm still puzzled at how everything kept changing week after week after week. First you can do it, then you can't, then you have to get something done, and now it seems to be a good result. And I think I had mentioned in the past day or so that my recommendation is to keep hard copies and electronic copies of every bit of, every communication, just in case. That's an important thing. So you have that paper trail to say, hey, you said this
And we
on
do,
that
I've-
particular
I
time.
receive copies from Leslie. They usually like to use just first names.
Oh, yeah,
And
but-
I'm keeping all the copies.
Keep everything, because just, and they always say, hey, you said this on December, whatever, yeah.
And that's very good advice, because in fact,
Yeah.
USAC typically audits these programs. If you're found not to be in compliance, you have to pay them back the money that they allocated
That's
to
what
your
I'm-
school district.
yeah.
You actually have a liability when you sign up
Yeah,
for these things.
because I'm still puzzled about, they keep changing, and different names pop up and different interpretations, and that does bother me.
Right, two things, remember, one is they get 46,000 applications a year. It's a big organization.
Oh, yeah, oh, of course,
And
but still.
So if something doesn't smell right, ask the next person up the chain of command.
Yeah.
You
But
know,
still,
go
yeah.
go to the top.
Go
if
to
you
the
have
top, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Next item is a policy change. This is adoption on second reading. This simply deletes one sentence in terms of the period of the year when children are allowed to wear shorts to school. Probably when it's cold, they're not wearing shorts anyway, but this was a one modification. Do I have a motion to approve this on
So
second
moved.
reading? Moved. Do I have a second? Moved and seconded by Mr. Bailey. Any discussion on this? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 7-0. I'm sorry, motion passes 6-1. Dr. Flowers opposed. Next is the first reading. There are two things that came up in our discussion that had to do with the whole E-rate waiver application process. One was a request that we have this thing called board docs. I don't know how many people use it, but it is our electronic communication means with the school committee and the community. So you can go on there and find our agendas and all supportive material on there. We have run into circumstances where committee members have requested that information be posted there. The superintendent has overruled them on the request to post it. I think in an open communication, transparent government sense, if we're sitting here talking about something and somebody has a piece of data or information or an exhibit they want to be part of that conversation, it should be on that school committee docket so the public knows what we're talking about and the basis of those conversations. I do understand the superintendent's concern that provocative comments about an individual or defamatory comments about an individual shouldn't be allowed, but let's face it, you're all elected by the city voters. If you behave like that, you're probably not going to get elected again. And so the voters screen the school committee to be responsible individuals that serve on as an elected committee. So I don't think we need a superintendent deciding what we can and can't post to our board docs for our meetings, for our public conversations. Have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved. Do I have a second? I'll second that motion. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Mrs. Gaines?
What are the legalities that we need to observe before posting any material? Has this gone by legal counsel?
I did have a discussion with Mr. Galvin about it, and he saw that there would be some concerns, so.
What, I would like to know what his concerns are
Yeah.
before I support this, because I am suit weary. And I just don't like the possibility of being sued.
So we all have access to Mr. Galvin. If we all have any questions about something we want to be posted, we can send it to Mr. Galvin for his review and comment.
But I don't know, I'm questioning the legality of putting this in policy.
And the only other thing is, you know, if you want to do this, do the superintendent, not not the administrative assistant. She doesn't report to you, she reports to you.
Okay. So we'll strike and his/her administrative assistant from the modification.
And if there was some sort of fail-safe that you could put in for this,
Yeah.
with the, you know, I just get concerned, having been around for a long time, every once in a while.
Okay, so with the exception of personnel issues, and that's really what it comes down to.
Some things would have to be on the,
I mean, truth be told, I would think.
How about with, you know, I would, at some point, I would want to vet this with Neil, either here, or if this were a part of a change in the policy. So in other words, if the superintendent had a concern about something that was posted and added, to have the board attorney look at it. I mean, I just.
So this is a first reading, so certainly
Okay,
opportunity for amendment
okay.
prior to the second reading.
Okay.
I mean, truth be told, I would expect this just to be what happens normally, but I ran into a barrier, and I don't think that barrier should exist for future school committee members. Dr. Flowers?
may I respectfully suggest removing the word supportive because it's redundant. You said support of an agenda item, so it's not necessary. That's just an editing
So we'll
thing.
strike the after any supportive material,
Yeah,
any
it's
material.
any material
Yep,
supplied
absolutely.
by,
Thank you.
okay, that's just an editing thing.
Okay. Any other discussion? So this will be edited, supportive removed, his/her administrative assistant removed, and then before the second reading, review it with Mr. Galvin to see if there are any fail-safe language issues so that nothing gets posted that's not
Right.
derogatory, inflammatory. Okay?
So is that part of your motion?
So the
That
motion
it will be reviewed by legal counsel?
prior to the second reading.
Right.
Right, yes. Yes. Okay. So the motion and seconded, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 6-1. Dr. Flowers again? Okay. 6.8 is another first reading. Pull that, catch up here.
Second reading, this is the second reading?
First reading. This is the first reading.
Yeah, because we
Question
never,
about
I couldn't get the
this.
committee
Yep,
together
correct.
to, yeah.
Correct.
This came to light as we talked about the E-rate program itself and the contracts, which are statements of work that spend $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, but because they tend to be primarily grant funds are not coming before the school committee for review and approval. So discussion on the 21st was to, in fact, make this amendment to the policy. Mrs. Gaines, I realize you're
All right,
available.
the language reads, well, a purchase of $50,000, and we have a limit of $4,000 as far as the limit that the superintendent can do without coming before the school committee. I don't want to see him, not him, but anybody, any superintendent, able to spend $50,000.
Make it four.
So you're
I would oppose this.
So your understanding would be that those other limits, so for example, $10,000 capital improvement limit, if you're buying technology to go in schools, that $10,000 limit applies and a contract should come before the school
That's
committee
right.
for approval.
So make it
I think it's
4,000.
already covered.
Make it
That,
4,000.
you know,
I don't want to change it from $4,000.
all I think is that it ought to be clear in the policy. I mean, other places that I was superintendent, there was a clear-cut determination, contracts over a certain limit had to have school committee approval.
Right.
Okay,
The
so.
culture here, as we know, was not that.
Ours
Yeah.
is $4,000.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Leary,
I would, if you want to make that amendment 4,000, I'm fine with that. I asked this to be on, and the reason I put this on, and I'll go through it again for those that didn't hear it last time, and I won't mention the name, but we had a business manager signed a contract for a electric contract with National Grid for 5 years, which number one is illegal, you can only do 3 years. Number two, is the hours is 11.5 cents per hour, which is 5 cents more per hour than we're paying right now in your home. If you open your electric bill at home, you'll see you're paying 6.5%, 6.5 cents per kilowatt hour. So we're paying 5% more, which is hundreds of thousands of dollars more, and it wasn't signed by one single school committee person. So if 4,000 is fine with me, the lower the better by me, I'm happy with that.
Whoa. Before we do this, please understand the implications. So I think we need to go a little slow. I've got textbooks that I order for $4,500 or $5,000. If I have to come to the school committee for everything over $4,000, you're going to see nothing but a huge list of stuff that
What number are you comfortable with?
20
Well, what is it?
textbooks, workbooks. When we
What's the
do bulk
administrative
ordering in the
policy?
beginning of the year,
Those things have come before the school committee in a bundle.
Yeah.
We have approved textbook purchases. Now, I don't know when we stopped doing that.
you approve the textbooks, but you don't approve the actual purchase orders.
What?
You don't, there are a lot of things that are over $4,000 as a bulk. This would mean that every single one of the Bradley tuitions would have to come
No,
before you.
that's-
I mean,
This is
seriously, I
purchasing
think we
committee.
need to take a look at this. I was fine with 50,000 because those are big ticket items and things like Bobby had mentioned before, which we should have done. Food service, transportation, all of those big ticket items. But if I start having to come before the school committee with everything over $4,000, it's, just.
Well, we have always approved it. I did not know that we weren't approving these things. The
Not-
policy states that those purchases over $4,000 must have school committee approval.
There's a policy that says every purchase over $4,000 has to have school committee approval. I have not.
It says it has to go
administrative
through a
policy?
procurement
Process,
process
but-
of competitive bidding. Doesn't say
But
school committee approval.
if appropriate, when we approve a textbook, and you know that we're going with this textbook, okay? Every
It's
year,
part of the
every year, we have to have new workbooks. Those workbooks are probably gonna be over $4,000.
Yeah, but that's all in your budget. And
Right.
that we
That would
approve
be
the
approved, the
budget
budget, yeah.
for those expenditures.
Oh, okay.
But this
That's
policy change
understood.
says approved by contract and signed by the chair of the school.
Right, this is,
Not signed by a
This is-
business
Yeah, who
manager.
normally signs?
this is a little different.
Yeah.
See, I
This
was
is-
fine with this,
Yeah,
so.
I'm fine with it too.
Who
20,000?
normally signs these things?
You know what, here's the problem. People have been
Well, I don't
signing
know.
things even without my knowledge,
that-
okay?
that shouldn't
No,
be-
let's be real clear, and that's why I'm comfortable with this.
And it's cost
Okay.
hundreds of thousands of
No,
dollars to the
people-
taxpayers in Newport.
okay,
And I'm
but-
PO, let me
but-
tell you,
but-
that something get in here about is ridiculous.
But people have been signing these things without my approval. If I have something like this and I'm able to disseminate to administrators, I can say, hey, tech person, you can't be doing this, or business manager, you can't be doing this. Joe Eva, what you're saying is, when we do the regular budgets, you approve it in the budget,
Right.
and I don't have to
You
come
can
back to
question
you.
all this.
Right.
Okay, that's fine.
Right.
But I think that Bobby was talking about, like, energy contracts,
Yeah.
transportation contracts, things of that nature.
We're still
Is that it?
We should challenge that, by the way.
Those
But
things-
that's almost
Shame
gone
on
now.
me.
Are
Shame on me
those
for not doing that
things
now,
not
1 year
part
left.
of the budget that we
They-
approve?
That-
They
This
would be,
looks- this-
they would be, yeah.
This appears to me to be,
Contracts, these are major contracts. I think his concept, Bobby's concept was, why didn't these tech grants come before the school committee? Was that the concept? And
Well,
why
the
did,
National Grid,
or national?
tech grant is
National
not-
Grid was a 5-year contract for 11.5% per hour, and we're paying 6.5% per hour.
Preaching to the choir.
We didn't sign it, he signed the contract, was
I know,
never
but we
signed,
approved it.
not signed. The contract is, I'm trying to get, it's key here, signed.
Someone has to get a
I'd like it
signature.
this to maybe also include, like, I mean, it's my understanding that when we purchased newer technology in the district, it was done without our approval, and I don't know that I would have been so much in favor of buying used technology with used batteries.
Guess what? I wasn't aware of it either, okay?
Right, so I'm just saying, so that-
I stopped that when I became aware of it, when we got the new tech guy on board.
Right.
So
Okay,
$20,000.
So this has been going on without anybody knowing?
That's my
Yeah.
concern, and that's why I don't have a
Oh,
problem
that-
with.
What would
Okay.
have, what number would have avoided that
that-
problem?
Let's refer this to a committee like a finance committee.
So $20,000 is a good number.
Dr.
Yeah,
Shoemaker has a
I just-
recommendation to refer this to the finance subcommittee to
Find
take a more thorough
find an
review of
accurate
the-
dollar amount.
And take a look at the
And lower
policy.
that
And you know what?
$50,000.
I think that's a great idea, and I do say, again, as I said in my memo, I don't have a problem with doing this because it helps me as well, because my administrators know then that they darn well better not obligate funds to the district.
So why not do a first reading?
Mr. Leary?
Why not do a first
We
reading?
certainly can do a first reading.
Yeah, let's do a first reading at $20,000. So any purchase in excess of 25,000, whatever,
Later 30.
Okay,
yeah, I know.
But
Anything 25,000
not
required.
special ed tuitions?
The key,
No.
No.
No, this
That's
says
Said all be-
purchasing and bidding.
No.
So it's a
That's
modification to
something
the
else.
first reading to read, any purchase in excess of $25,000 shall require a written contract which has been approved by the school committee, signed by the chairperson of the school committee,
that's the key.
and this
And
will be
the
referred to...
And the
This
superintendent.
will be referred to the finance subcommittee for review before the second reading.
Can we
Okay.
add, can we
So
say
moved. A second.
two
Moved and
signatures?
seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All
Who
opposed?
moved it, please?
I did.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, thank you. What was the vote?
7.
7. So you did vote for that, Dr. Flowers?
Yeah.
Okay. I know it
I'm
didn't
not
go through
being
the policy.
ornery, I have my principles, that's all.
6.9, motion to identify alternative, reliable, and auditable method of managing employee attendance. Back at the beginning of the year, we had a conversation about what our policy manual said up to that point to account for employee arrivals at school or a place of employment. We added a sentence to make it auditable and reliable. The chosen implementation was a sign-in sheet. Personally, I've heard a lot of angst from people about employees that not working, that some people forget to sign in just because they're busy, others can sign in after the fact because the sign-in books are left out. So I just don't know that a sign-in book is the best implementation of an auditable and reliable means. So that's why I asked this to put on the agenda as an action item to discuss with the school committee, see what their will would be.
So,
Ms. Leary?
Mr. Chairman, is there a way that we could, they all have IDs. Is there a way to use their computer or an ID they can check in that way? In and out?
People can do that remotely, you make a decision what you want me to do.
I think there are lots of options, and perhaps the options have to be investigated rather than
Yeah.
just a knee-jerk reaction to it.
Yep.
I just hear a lot of concern from employees about the manual sign-in-the-book process, lining up, waiting, signing in. Dr. Flowers?
I will repeat what I said the last two times we spoke about this. I feel it is demeaning and insulting to all of the employees. I think we're down to, 4 people now who have time
That's all
management,
fine, yeah.
problems. And just as we would not put a label on every one of our students, we should not do that to our employees.
I'm sorry. Dr. Schumacher.
I just think for the public to know, we've had a problem of some teachers coming in late. And the response of the school committee was to send it to the superintendent, who had the principals in the building talk to the teachers. We reviewed that record tonight, and it turns out all the teachers who had been being late have changed their ways, and it doesn't seem to be a problem at the moment.
I have a
Yes,
question.
Boland?
I too will be supporting this, taking this off, but I guess I wonder if it could just, that this be the auditable and reliable can just be that at any given point that the principals can just tell you if we're having a problem. Like, that would be the auditable part, that he would, come to you and say we're having and hopefully he would take care of it at his level, but that was a problem. It wasn't being taken care of. So I suggest we take this method because it's wasting teachers' time, and it's,
So the motion essentially says, end the sign-in,
Yeah.
and then develop a plan for a different way to do
Right.
that, which could be a spot inspection, random
Right.
inspection, could be...
Then I would ask you
Figures of
to remove auditable and reliable, because you've asked me to be auditable and reliable, and I've done it at the lowest level I possibly could. So if that's what you want to do, Mrs. Bowen, then revise the policy and eliminate auditable and reliable, because that's not what you're saying. you're saying do a spot check, and I mean, that's not auditable and reliable.
Well, I don't know, that the problem is that the sign-in sheets weren't auditable and reliable either, because if you went and looked at them, there are many people's names, that forgot, weren't, just didn't make it to the office that day or whatever, and so I would not want to use that as some kind of a document to go after teachers, so.
Nobody wants to go after teachers.
Nobody.
Okay?
Well, no, and that's what I mean, I don't want someone to even think about that, so.
Mrs. Gaines?
I'm all in favor of eliminating this. I was never in favor of it, and I'm glad to see it go. But when we talk about security, and if people had those tags that are identification tags.
RFID, yeah.
And they were somehow keyed to getting into the building, that could probably be tracked with a timestamp.
That's correct.
And I think we have to be concerned about security in our buildings now. So maybe we should just look at the possibility of tying security to that kind of accountability.
Right?
How they do it in Newark, Mr. Kelly?
Everyone's responsible for entering their time of arrival, time of departure into their time card on a daily basis. And supervisors are responsible for ensuring people are.
Do you
in
punch
fact,
a time clock or just write it?
No, it's
in?
electronic, it's on computer. It's on computer.
How about Newport Hospital, Ms. Phelan?
It's a time clock.
It's time clock.
This is done, yeah, this
Right.
one.
So this motion is simply to stop the practice of the sign-in sheet and work to identify an alternative means. We're not going to solve the alternative means tonight.
Look at
So
alternative mean.
Right.
So moved.
Tied to security.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Mr. Phelan?
It was tied to
We didn't have
security?
the timesheet put in.
That I could
This
maybe deal with. I
problem
still
will
don't
still be
like it.
going
Sorry,
on.
Mr. Phelan.
It's been ignored for years.
So now you want to stop the timesheet?
No, I think this timesheet.
No, I mean, I'm hearing that they want to stop the timesheet and then do what?
Well, I would
Look at
do the
alternatives.
timesheet until such time we get something
I
different.
see. That makes
Because
sense, right.
It's not the ones that come in every day. It's the ones that abuse and keep coming in late, and it's not fair for the kids. And any other job they clock in. I'm not.
Mrs. Gaines?
We're talking about 4 out of how
Yeah.
many employees?
8
300
was-
something?
Yeah.
That's like killing a fly with a bazooka.
No, there was
Started
8
with 8,
before,
right?
at least 8 that we know
Even
of.
that's not many.
But we don't know for sure.
too many.
And if someone comes in late, how do we penalize, not penalize, but
Oh,
Prove
see,
it.
someone
That's what
does.
the
They're doing
principal
it.
is there for.
Yeah.
He should be keeping an eye on this stuff.
you could say that for every company in the world.
Mr. Phelan has the floor.
That's
Right.
all, I'm just saying, it could be for any company. No one was doing anything. Administration, union, whatever. So if people had done something previously, we wouldn't be talking about this now.
Right, absolutely.
This is
So what's the motion?
So we have-
This is a
What's the
gotcha.
motion?
So-
I
No.
move the question.
So the
Yeah,
motion
yeah.
is to identify an alternative means
And-
of implementing auditable and reliable employee attendance
And who's supposed to do that?
Tied to,
in lieu of the current sign-in
tied to
process.
security?
No, I think
No,
you
no,
figured that
that's
out.
one
That's
of
an
our things.
implementation detail.
Wasn't the motion to stop that?
Yeah, it was to stop
There was
the
2 parts to
sign-in
it.
sheet.
The first part was to stop the current process, wasn't it not?
Yes,
To stop the practice sign
Yeah.
sheets.
Yes.
And look at
Yes.
and review alternatives.
Okay? So the motion is to end the practice of sign-in sheets and investigate alternative methods of
And I
managing
seconded
employee
it.
Okay.
attendance. Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hey, Tom? 6-1. Bob, did you?
No,
I put 2
alternative
hands
methods, I'm
up.
good for it.
Okay with that?
Alternative.
Oh. Vote early, vote often. 6.10, I guess, is going to be a non-action. We had hoped to have the Teachers Association of Newport contract. I think as most people know, this was settled through, the detailed parameters were settled through arbitration. However, at this point, we don't have the written contract modifications, which is really what we need to approve and sign both by the president of the teachers union and whoever's the chair of the school committee at such a time as it gets approved. I think it's been held up because some questions have been asked of our counsel, Mary Ann Carroll. They haven't been responded to in a timely fashion, so that put a couple weeks in delay. Now, those responses are coming back, and people are not available right now to review it, so I think we're probably looking at another, I don't know, week, 2 weeks?
Probably January.
Look at Mr. Kusinari.
I'll answer you, honestly, like.
Yes.
Can I answer from there when you move?
Yeah, you can answer from there, Dave.
We did receive a copy, we read it. We had some concerns about some tentative agreements that were discussed in this room. Mainly around healthcare. And the counsel from the other side wasn't forthcoming on questions that we were asking her and on other cases that she was working on throughout the state. She didn't respond in timely manners. In all sincerity, I received an email yesterday that addressed two of our concerns. It came down from the arbitrator, Vincent Augusta Jr. He came out with an advisory for our chief negotiator, Jane Argenteri, and Mary Ann Carroll, and we're hoping to reduce these items to writing as soon as possible. And we'll sign the contract as quickly as possible.
Yeah. And the contract would be signed by the president of Teachers Union, right? I've seen emails saying Ms. Blaze would sign it, but she's neither the president of Teachers Union or a member of the Teachers
The
Union.
bylaws of the association now state that retirees are no longer members of the Teachers Association of Newport, so the former president is not authorized to sign the contract. I will in fact be signing the contract.
Thank you.
In a timely manner.
Mr. Chairman, could we put a deadline on this for a date? I mean, it's been 4 months, we got a new contract signed. I think some point has to step up the plate here. Let's give a deadline, and at what point we decide what we're gonna do, I mean, if it's 2 weeks, it's 2 weeks, that's fine, but let's not talk about this 2 months now again.
Is it reasonable for the first school committee meeting in January to have this
I
signed?
would say that's more than reasonable, thank you.
Right.
All right.
Is that reasonable, Ms.
So, it's
Leary?
on the agenda, yeah, it's fine. It's
Yeah.
be on agenda for acting on the contract at that date.
I think that will give, there's holidays in between, but that'll give enough time.
It certainly
to look
should.
at it. Okay.
They should.
Okay, so there's no real action, but you put that on the agenda for your...
Yep, January.
Okay. Thank you, David. That completes the action items for the evening. There are 3 discussion items. One is a discussion of contracts related to E-rate equipment purchase. As we dug into the elementary school, we discovered that, in fact, we had significant approvals for E-rate funds for both the middle school and the high school. Apparently, the middle school, probably on the order of $420,000, is already being implemented, but we never saw a contract for that purpose.
They can't find it.
Is that above 20,000?
And Newport's contribution, having dug at this for the last week and found out information late today, I'll forward this to the school committee. This was agreed to by the former tech director. There was a communication there. The obligation for Newport, I believe, was about $87,000 of the $400,000. I have yet to see a scope of work agreement with regard to that, but I did see something that indicated the things that would be ordered. That's as much as I know right now. Osiris got that for me late this afternoon. With regard to Rogers, there has been no commitment, as far as I know, to move forward with the Rogers scope of work. However, the good news about Rogers is that the implementation of the wireless network at Rogers High School will not cost the taxpayers, property taxpayers of Newport, a dime, because it will be supported by the state bond referendum and the E-rate together. And Osiris has been working hard to make sure that happens, and I'll let you know as that progresses.
I think that even though that's E-rate and some state matching funds, because if those programs are audited, the school committee, the school department is still liable for those funds from the E-rate program if they're not in compliance with all the regulations. I would suggest that you still want to have that contract in front of you before it gets approved.
But I don't know if there was ever one that was developed. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Okay?
For the middle school.
Yeah.
How do they get paid?
Because John Miley signed a purchase order.
Got it. Mrs. Bowman.
Yeah, I would really like to
So,
see
you want to know, it's unbelievable.
sometime in January or February, a reasonable time, but a state of where we are exactly with computers, some kind of, I hear the high school teachers speaking often of having the, a lack of reliable computers for students to access. And I really think it's important that we get a really good feel of where we are as a district with technology. So
Sure, and I would like Osiris to be involved in that, and he probably take, and no, it's not a software program, Mrs. Gaines. Want him to take advantage of some time to really look at everything and give me his eyes. We have the eyes of the former tech director, but I'd like to see how Osiris looks at this.
Right.
maybe February, a reasonable time, you think?
I'll have to ask him.
Okay.
Perhaps.
Does
I'll
he have a
ask him.
tech assistant?
What?
Does he have a tech assistant?
He's got Doreen, he's got Morrison, and he's got the Jerry and Mike, yeah. Yep. He does, okay? Yeah.
Okay, next discussion item is status of the Standing Advisory Committee for teaming at Thompson Middle School. This was an arbitrator decision from August 3rd. It hadn't been established yet. We did ask, NPS Dec is in the process of preparing to come and interview people at the school department, but I think we also thought that since the arbitrator decided that this would be implemented, that it would make sense for it to actually be established, for people to be talking about goals, priorities, objectives for the teaming arrangements, rather than waiting till it's too late and things are just handed over from NPS Dec. So are we close to establishing that?
We have an administrative group, and I'm sure David has a teacher group.
We have a joint committee of 3 teachers and 3 administrators,
And-
but it hasn't met yet.
And it will be meeting with the NPS Dec folks who are coming this Friday?
Yeah, that's what you said in your note.
Yeah,
Friday.
this Friday. There seemed to be some confusion on my part as to which came first on this, the chicken or the egg. So, my position was that I thought we ought to have the committee meet, and then if you didn't like the response, then go to NPS Dec, so.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Leary?
If we could, I've asked before, NPS Dec definitely meet with the school committee
Well, they will at some point in time,
Yeah.
Charlie.
before they make a report.
Well, they'll be down here if you want to have an individual meeting with them.
Oh, okay, well, Friday?
No, they can't come on. This is going to be a long process. Now they're coming down here and talking with folks. Then they're going to do some research on other options, and then they'll come back. And I think they were talking about not being able to present something until February, which gave you time to, talk about whatever you wanted to do.
So can you ask them at some point that you could spot out an hour where we want to meet with any school committee members, want to meet with them?
I can certainly do that.
Yep.
Yeah, I can.
Some point between February.
Yeah, I can certainly do that. I'm sure that they'll be coming down again at least 1 or 2 more times.
Mrs. Gaines?
I'm confused. What are we doing? Is NPS Dec proceeding with this, or is the local committee
Well, that's what I was
working?
confused about, sort of.
The arbitrator's ruling in the
Yes.
summertime was for the teachers and the administration to develop a committee
Yes.
to look at the options for the middle school. Then the school committee
Okay,
hired the consultants, so we did not meet independently
It was
with
not
what
a-
the arbitrator directed us to do. That was my understanding, that we were going to meet independently prior to the consultants.
But I believe we were clear when we passed the approval for NPS Dec consultant, that would create some set of options to hand to that committee to add to anything else they had, and, just give a little broader view of what would work the best for the students and the teachers and the school committee.
I'm sorry, that wasn't the way I looked at it, because I did specifically ask to have the committee meet first and then give recommendations and then hire NPS Dec. So I guess there was a confusion there.
Well, so, what did we vote? Didn't we vote this?
You voted to hire
It was
NPS
not
Dec.
a
Yeah,
uniform vote.
we voted, we passed.
Yeah, so they.
Yeah?
It was passed.
Well, I didn't say it. Bobby, please
What she said
understand,
was-
I'm not,
So at this point,
Haven't moved on
NESDEC is working on that. They'll come meet with this committee, have discussions with this. Hopefully, that will cause that committee to actually go work perhaps independently also, because they know more about that school than anybody, and they may know a lot more options than
Which is what we
NESDEC will
said.
come up with.
That's why
That's
I
what-
didn't
yes.
support bringing NESDEC on board, for the very reasons you just stated. And why, so you didn't meet because NESDEC was hired?
Yeah.
I'm not really sure why.
No.
Yeah, because it was,
His perspective.
Yeah.
It was
that's
never,
why
never
people
started.
voted
Yeah.
for that.
They had the committee.
Committee never
Boland.
started.
Mrs. Boland?
I just want to say, I don't think anything precluded, other that from you from meeting, or still does, before NESDEC comes here. If that's a meeting that you, with the administrators choose to have, have it so you're a little more prepared before you meet them.
My recollection of the discussion was, Dr. Ambrosi said, why don't we let the committee, the advisory committee between the teachers and the administrators, work until November. And if that doesn't work out, then we go with a consultant. And that was the motion I made back in November.
So that's why we
I
did.
don't think so.
Right, since I got my.
So at any rate,
No, in a way.
committee's established, we'll meet with the NESDEC folks. If we want to meet separately, that's fine. Okay?
All right. All right, thank you. So that gives us the status of the teaming subcommittee, soon to meet. Discussion item on alternative learning program, which is a program we have at the high school for students that a regular classroom just doesn't work for them. It serves two purposes for them. It gets, in some cases, disrupted students out of those classrooms, and it gives those students a pathway to graduation. We did have some questions about how it's implemented in the daily attendance. Superintendent's provided a report for us on that issue.
And I still think we need to really revise this and make it more robust, more meaningful, and either increase the number of youngsters who access the program or take a look at making the program smaller.
The question that came to me after looking at this is, it seems that in July of 2011, the state sort of changed the law when they changed the compulsory attendance age. And I think they made it so that alternative learning plans need to be individually developed and approved. And I don't think that's what we're doing in our ALP program. So I guess my question would be, does it comply with the state regulations with respect to alternative learning programs?
That's the other issue that we have to review. Right now, the youngsters that have these individual plans are youngsters that we're sending to Diploma Plus, we're sending them out to other site locations, and they tend to be the older kids. So a few of our kids are seniors and of this age. So we the whole concept of this is if you only have 28 kids and you have 4 teachers, this should be really an individualized prescriptive program for each one of these youngsters.
Mr. Gaines?
When NESDEC looks at this program, I hope they will come back with some suggestions as far as skills are concerned.
Yeah, right.
Because this program of having kids sit down with a book is not,
On
it's
a
not
computer,
what these
right.
kids are, they can't do it.
It needs to be more engaging, obviously. I think it needs to be, we need to
It
have
should
some
be
more
more interest-based,
community-based. Right.
interest-based, and get some mentorships and get these kids into something that makes sense to them.
Yeah.
Show them that they can earn a
Absolutely.
living,
Yeah.
and maybe there won't be so many discipline problems.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to figure out a way to do something that's going to engage.
It's got to be
these
meaningful.
youngsters. Yeah.
And it's not meaningful now.
Dr. Flowers?
Yeah, and the FAQs, all the questions about, coming from the state law, and they indicate that the students participate in setting up their particular program, so probably what Mrs. Gaines is saying would play into this
Yeah.
here. I mean, every kid, there's some hook for every one of us to say, this is what really interests them. Understanding also, there are certain things in life you have to do, but this is why when people were all kinds of angst when they raised the age to 18, I was probably the only lone voice here saying, good, keep them in, or until they graduate, rather than being out on the street causing trouble.
It can be here,
At least you have some sort of a control there. But no, seriously, and just maybe,
here in their
just maybe you're going to have a hook that will really get these kids invested in it, and you have to listen to them also.
Thank you,
That's
Dr.
my
Cox. Dr. Shoemaker.
I only picked this up through the Providence Journal, but I think it's Mount Pleasant High School in Providence has started a new program where it integrates this group of kids with the tech school, so they get a skill, and they maybe have enough of a hook to keep them here, and at the same time have them develop a career. They're not going to be ready, college ready, but at least develop a career.
Good point. Thank you. Any other discussion on the alternative learning program? Okay, 7.4 is subcommittee reports. Do we have any subcommittee reports this evening?
No, I tried as I might to have the policy committee together, and however small the committee was, we couldn't get consensus on it.
Difficult time of year.
Yeah, in time for this, yeah.
Mrs. Bowen?
Yeah, just real quickly, the RIDE has finally decided to do something about the policies that have to be rewritten before next year, so we're hopefully going to be accepted into one of the pilot schools, and that we're going to get some help in redrafting our new policy. And that'll be coming up in January. I'll be sending this application in this week.
Policy for
This is for our new wellness policy.
wellness policy, okay.
Thank you. That'd be great. Any other subcommittee reports? You know the Pell School going along?
Oh.
Great, that's moving along.
Yeah.
Interior.
We had a complaint yesterday from someone who complained that the water was running down Dexter Street and it was all our fault.
It rained pretty hard yesterday.
On top of that, Mrs. Gaines, it was muddy. That was muddy water
was
coming
muddy.
down the street.
Muddy waters.
So, I did the usual thing. I called Jim Farrar, said, it's your baby.
Okay,
And,
talk to him.
yeah. So he called the person who was complaining, but this was not water on anybody's property. This was water in the street that was running down, and she said it was clogging the drain in front of her house. So,
My street was
yeah.
Okay,
Brown River.
next,
Jim said we're guilty by
reports from
association.
superintendent and staff, expenditure and revenue reports. We do have an updated budget information. It might not be.
Right,
Oh,
I
it is online.
just
Good.
got this today. I would have thought that Joan was here. Again, I'm reluctant to say that this is what it is, because I haven't had a chance to sit down with the payroll person, but it looks right now as though we have a 2% of our budget is available balance at this point in time. This does not include any of the special ed teacher aides which we anticipate hiring, nor does it include our new accountant, which I hope we will be hiring in December, nor does it include any of the administrative raises, nor does it include a lot of the substitutes. So I do need to really make sure that this is what it is.
Okay.
I moved quickly on this because I know you wanted something. I was scared that it was going to be worse than this. Right now, it isn't as bad as I was led to believe. Number one, that's good. Number two, we do have a substantial shortfall in the tuition line, and that's cause for concern. So going forward, we need to realize the cost of the Met School to the district.
So I would expect the next school committee's finance committee to take a closer look at this. Well, because the finance is really coming together, right? You got a new accountant.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it has some numbers to work with.
Yeah, right.
Right now, we're
Right.
just shooting in the dark.
Absolutely, right. Okay. Happy to leave with the department in the black, though?
That's why you wanted this. Did you speak with her before the meeting? Okay? That's what I want to know.
Enrollment reports, they are what they are, right?
Yeah.
So strong enrollment.
How's the elementary school?
There are 45 classrooms between the pre-K and 4 right now, and 39 available at the new school, and hence the conversation we just had earlier in the day.
Yeah. But that's this year, so this
Uh,
is,
Damage reports, I
So-
think we had no damage this year.
Not,
oh, that's nice.
not this month, we had Sandy the last month.
And the
Really?
super,
Me.
oh, yeah.
Are the windows fixed?
And the,
I know we're working on the roofs, that's what I know. They're not done yet, but they're completely paid for, so.
and the superintendent's update.
As
Motion
as listed.
A motion to,
Accept as presented.
accept as presented. A second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All opposed? I'd like to wish you all a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy New Year.
Happy
It's
Columbus.
been a pleasure serving with you, and call to adjourn the meeting.
Wait a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute, can't get away that easy.
Things went too fast by me earlier in the meeting, and I just want to take credit for stopping somebody in church and twisting their arm to run for school committee about 5 years ago. It paid
You
off.
should. As you
Paid
should.
off.
Thank you for the nudge. It was fun. I think we call a meeting to adjourn, and have a great holiday with your families.
Where's the gavel?
Oh.
Make the motion to adjourn.
What the heck? You gotta do it at least once.
So
Come on.
He did.
He made,
Second.
okay, so we all
You have to
seconded
hand
it.
it over to Charlie, no?
Yeah.
Wait, gavel
Oh,
was
sure.
taken.
Don't even give that to me.